Vicky Linnane and welcome to Embrace Therapy podcast. I am a practicing art therapist based in Ireland. In each episode, I will interview guests from various fields of therapy and well-being with the aim to encourage healing through embracing therapy.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Embrace Therapy podcast. On this week's podcast, I will be taking the hot seat. So I'll be answering some questions and just telling you a little bit more about me and my journey to becoming an art therapist. I've got some lovely questions in from my colleagues and I'm happy to sit and answer them. And if this is something that is fruitful and people enjoy it, I might do it again. It's just an interesting take, I suppose, on the podcast. I haven't done this before and I'm interested to see what you all think about it in the end. So I'm an art therapist now since 2015 and I only started working in my private practice 2.5 years ago now, so I'm not that long at it really, but initially I would have been doing art facilitation for a good long while, and that really was the start of it all for me. And I suppose, going back a little bit further, even just to me as a child, I would have always done art, and I suppose not having the classical training of going into college or anything like that, it was just I would always have a sketchbook. I would always rather doodle than sit and do work, and always found myself colouring in and things like that. So it was just always there. It was always a way for me to find a space for me. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. So I've always done it. It's something that I've continued to do into my adult life. But it's never been a thing that I would like to put out to people, I guess. It's never been in my mind to even have an exhibition or anything like that. So, but it's not to say that maybe down the line I might get more time to do my own art in that way with that kind of purpose. But for me, it's always been just that space that I can go to relax or maybe just to offload. So art can be used in various ways. But for me, it's always been quite insightful, quite dreamlike space where I can kind of delve into the art and just find my breath and relax. Other times it can be a way to just distract. So if there's something that's been bothering me and I just want to escape, it can be quite a nice way to escape as well. But sometimes it's just the act of doing something and being mindful of what you're doing in that moment. So it's a real checking in. So yeah, so I suppose where to start is the main thing. So I think, looking at me in school, I definitely would have done art, and then somewhere along the way I decided that I wanted to become a primary school teacher and started going down that path, but just couldn't quite get language. Like I'm not very good at foreign languages like Spanish or French or German. I tried them all, but Irish was something that I really wanted to be good at, and I just wasn't. I was at the Gaeltacht for 3 summers and still had to do ordinary Irish, so that just meant that I didn't get to do the primary school training. But it did mean that I had to think a little bit more about what kind of career I was going to go down, what avenue. So I decided to go and get the general arts degree, and I ended up majoring then in psychoanalysis, philosophy and media studies. These are very unusual subjects to put together, but they really did make a lovely interlink and crossover. It was really interesting learning about, advertisement and the links to psychoanalysis and, all that kind of side of things, and the way that we think, and how capitalism has informed our being as well, and all of that, and how philosophy was the underpinning of it all. So I really enjoyed my time studying. And, I was quite lucky. I had particular lecturers in college as well, that sometimes I would be the only one showing up to class. So it'd be just me and this really important writer telling me his deepest thoughts. So it's funny how, when I think back of things like that I suppose people are always there and opening up to me in even circumstances like that. I suppose that side of me was always nurtured, and always something that I had at the back of my head, that people would always be like, oh, you're just a good friend, a good listener. And I think, a lot of the time we can be made to become the person that we're going to be from an early age. Like, I know a lot of people would have been maybe dressing up as nurses or doctors, and they've always had that in their minds, that they wanted to be a vet. I knew I didn't want to do that, but I definitely knew I wanted to help in some way. So helping people was definitely on the agenda. So I thought then about psychoanalysis and psychotherapy, and started to look down that route. And I remember going into college guidance counsellor and asking them about what kind of jobs would I get? What is the prospects of me getting a job as a psychoanalyst? And they were like, well, there's probably about 3 in the country. And even at that, most of them are just lecturing. So it's really not a place to go and get a career in. And I was like, okay, fine. So I looked into psychotherapy and was thinking about going down that way. And then I came across a book called Dibs, In Search of Self. And for me, this book opened up my eyes to play therapy and all the creative arts therapies. For me then, after reading Dibs, In Search of Self, I decided to do a bit of investigating, and went online and started looking up various courses across the UK and Ireland. And I didn't think too much about it then after that. It was kind of the end of first year, so for me it was, I'll think about it again later. And I remember doing some work experience for media studies, and I was doing some time on a local radio station, and got talking to somebody there, and they mentioned play therapy and talked about how they work with someone at the moment in Tala Hospital, and they're a music therapist, and there's a play therapist and an art therapist, and we're talking about this, and I was like, what? So this is something that is in a hospital. Wow, this is fantastic. So that started me even more searching. So it was just so exciting to find out all about that. So I found a course then. It was a summer course, and it was in Crawford College of Art and Design in Cork. And it was a 4-day intensive workshop with Leora Soto, and it was amazing. It literally changed my life. I did 4 days with a group of people who I'm still in contact with. I'd say 6 of the 10 that were there. And it's incredible that they're lifelong friends. We've just, I don't know, something happened that weekend. And I'm fortunate to say that I'm still in touch with Leora, and it's amazing to know that she's still, willing to talk to me about art therapy, and is extremely passionate about it even now. And I just find it just incredible. But this workshop in the summer of 2010 was my introduction to art therapy, and it was the use of clay, and we were talking about relationships and connections with people, and it was a lot about attachment and everything, and it was just really insightful. it developed such a self-awareness of my process and what kind of attachment I had, and it just made me question myself and my relationships, and it really helped me launch my long-term relationship to my husband. It really helped me change the pattern that I had, and I suppose just give me that extra boost of confidence to just go for it and to trust a little bit more. And that was the beginning of my process then of personal therapy. So from then on, I continue, and to this day, to have many forms of personal therapy. So art therapy and dance therapy and now psychotherapy, and just that ongoing reflective space, I think, is just, it's priceless, really. Having, I suppose, that privilege to be able to go to a personal therapist and have that space. I don't take it for granted. It's very important to who I am today. But after the 4-day workshop, I knew then that I wanted to do art therapy. It was really, really something else, and it really got the hunger, the appetite was there from then on to do art therapy. So I decided to look into the way to get into becoming an art therapist. So I looked at various ways of getting in and applied, and I didn't get in 2011, but they gave me some wonderful recommendations of how to. So what I decided to do then was to do a postgraduate certificate in arts in healthcare settings, and this was through Maynooth College in Ireland, and I really enjoyed that course. It was a year-long course, and yet again, some people from the workshop actually ended up doing it as well, and I met some lovely people in that as well, and it was just really, really helpful for the setting, I suppose, that I was going into, which would have been clinical. So I wanted to do a hospital setting. I knew that. I knew I wanted to either do a general hospital or a psychiatric hospital. I knew that that's a place that I had a hunger of working in, and this was the basic tools of how to do art facilitation in these settings. And we learned quite basic things, even just like setting up the space. But I really find them very helpful even now to know the things that they taught us, and just I'm quite regimented and ritualistic, I suppose, in the way that I set up the space each time for a client that comes in to see me. But yeah, so I really enjoyed that experience, and then from then on I decided to do a PLC course in Ballyfermot College of Further Education, and this was to really give myself the time to do art. So I did a full year portfolio course, and this was really, really good because it gave me an opportunity to just focus on the art. So during the day I would do that. At the weekend I was working, and the evenings as well I was volunteering. So it was a full-on year. It was really fun though. So I volunteered in St. Patrick's Hospital in Dublin, and this would be in Dublin City Centre. And I was part of the Twilight programme there, and Sinead Maloney took me under her wing and gave me a lot of help and support with I would do a lot of shadowing. So basically I would come in and I would sit in at her sessions, and I would just sit and watch, and I learned so much from that. And then from then on I got some training in the hospital so I could do some facilitation myself. And this is all on a voluntary basis, and somewhere along the way I was introduced to Nicole Work, and we decided that I would be good to help her on her project, which was a creative writing project. Spears of Daylight then was the fruits of that project, which was a beautiful exhibition with Una Young and Sinead Maloney and Nicole Rourke, and all the service users of St. Patrick's Hospital who took part in all the workshops. We had easily 20 people each night. I had to turn away some people because we just literally couldn't find a chair for them to sit in. It was a big hit, the creative writing, and then I brought in the art into it as well, and it was just brilliant. Really, really enjoyed that experience of knowing that this was helping people, that they would come down from their rooms and they would express something and they would have that creative flow, and then we'd help them kind of make it into something that they'd like to put forward for an exhibition. And it was a really slow process, and it was just, I'm really grateful for it, and just blessed that I had that experience, because it definitely helped me become the art therapist I am today, and know the difference between the art that we make in an art therapy session and the art that we make for ourselves or for consumption, or just even in that service to be exhibited, and the differences in all of those. The art that we make in an art class is totally different to the art that we make in an art therapy room, and that really helped me to see that, the differences. And there is quite a big difference between the art, which I'll get into later. But right now I just wanted to say that, my road was definitely the long way around to becoming an art therapist, and I'm actually really happy about that, because the portfolio course that I did in Ballyfermot was very important to me. It got me through. I was grieving at the time. I had just lost my brother, and it was an important time for me to actually not rush into things, to slow down my pace, and to allow the grief to come and to go through that grieving process. And I think having that year really held me together. So using the art for me, I'd come home, and I was actually living on my own at the time. It was just me and my cats for 3 months, and I would just come home and just do art until bedtime. And it was just really important for me at that time to have something to look forward to doing when I got home. So yeah, I think, yes, it did take me a good while to get to where I wanted to be, which was in Cork, doing the training to become an art therapist. But I did get there eventually. I applied at the end of the year of the portfolio course in Ballyfermot, and I got in. So I studied from 2012 to 2015 in Cork. I really, really can't speak highly enough about that course and just how much I got from it. Really powerful learning down there. I learned a lot about myself in the course. It's not an easy thing to go through any training to become a therapist. It's not easy, but it's definitely important that you get the training. The master's level is standard for any art therapist. Most psychotherapists have that 7 years of training, and art therapy would be no different. But yeah, so then I suppose from then on, I did some work in various different settings. So I went back to St. Patrick's Hospital for my work experience in first year, and that was really a lovely experience again, but from a different perspective, because I was coming in as an art therapist. It was really hard work, but really important too. And working with large groups, working in an open studio, and working with people one-to-one. So I really enjoyed that year of experience. And the next year then I worked in the Matt Talbot Community Trust in Ballyfermot. and developed a closed group of art therapy there. And I also did some one-to-one sessions with people that may have been in and out of the prison system, and it's a space for people and their families to get support and to get education. So it's a place where I found myself, and I really valued the experience that I had there in the centre, and the people as well, the people that I met and how kind they were to me. It's not something I'll ever forget. And then in my third year, I decided that I would try working with children. It had been something that I hadn't really thought about, and that might surprise people, because a lot of the time they think art therapy, oh, you must work with children, but initially I had only thought about working with adults, but for my third year I decided I'd give it a go, and I went to a school in South Dublin, a primary school, and it was really different, because you were in, yet again, a kind of similar setting to a hospital, in a way that it has that holding space, that that you have a team underneath you and you're not alone in it. And that was really good. But working in a more solution-focused manner was something that I hadn't really experienced in before. So, you'd have, I suppose, set targets or set goals for each client, and would have to make sure that you had the person for 8 weeks generally, because that would be from the start of the year to Christmas, and then you might start with someone else then after, and because I was there for work experience, I guess I didn't have the extra pressure of trying to see everybody on a list. That wasn't there, but it was always at the back of my mind that there is a list. That's something as well. The need is there. But working with children, then it really did change my mind. I thought about it, and I was like, actually, I think I can do this. I think I can work with adults and children. So I really decided then, that I'd go into private practice, but decided to give it a little break, because I just got married, and I guess life kind of took over. So I decided to work with a charity called Super Me. So I was working directly with children in schools that had experience of the impact of bullying. Basically, so working with children that might have been the victim or the aggressor, and working with the school again in that kind of solution focused way of trying to support and help the children, but also to really promote empathy, and the art was a really nice way to do that. So that was a really a lovely job to have. I really enjoyed those workshops that I did with Super Me, and Jennifer Ryan. She's an incredible person who came up with this idea that, well, why don't we go into schools and really give the tools that they need to support children and families through these impactful behaviors. And it's interesting, some schools, they really have their policies and they really believe in them, and then some other schools, they're just text written down and that's it. So there's a lot of learning in that, but bullying for me, I suppose, is an area that I'm quite passionate about. It's what I did my thesis in as well for the master's. So I'd be quite interested in that, and why, and how it's happening so regularly, and now especially online. So that's probably another area that we could go into another time. But so from there on, I decided that I would take a break. with so far as my art therapy, and I had a little baby, and I didn't go back into it then for another 2 years. So yeah, I had a 2 year gap, I suppose, of being just mum, and that was lovely. And I think as well, like I'm very lucky that like my work has definitely benefited from me becoming a mother, because I'm definitely more grounded and self-assured since becoming a mother. It definitely has had that impact on me. So yeah, my private practice then started in 2018, and I've been working in Kildare, so various places I've rented, and had a private practice in primary care psychotherapy in Naas, and now in Basin Street in Naas. And I also have worked from the Acre Project in Selbridge, and now I am working in Soworth projects in Kill. I'm really excited about this, and I'd love to tell you more about it. Heidi has been on the podcast already, so you might have already listened about it, but it's a really, really nice initiative, and at the moment there's myself, Heidi, and Kim. We're all art therapists working from Art Therapy at the moment, and really enjoying that place, and just how beautiful it is. You know, it's on a farm and it's in nature, and it really has that feeling of the inside is actually outside, and vice versa. So it's just amazing. It's just like this particular magic place that I drive through and spend some time in, and even the locality is healing, so I'm very lucky to have that as my workplace. But yeah, I hope that answers some questions about me. There's some more questions that I have been asked. I've tried to answer them there without actually saying the questions, but I think I might read some now. So what is art therapy? And that is a real general question that I always get asked. And the way that I would say it in my own words is it's a way to express, our inner thoughts and feelings, and to really just put them outside so we can have a good look at them. So to just externalize them. So, giving a different perspective, to give them shape and color and form, so we can stand out of the picture, and maybe something jumps out from that picture and is really telling, and maybe it's not telling, maybe it's just holding, so sometimes the art image can be, really insightful, and it can resolve inner conflicts, and other times it's just about regulating, so it's a self-regulating tool, and it helps us calm down and relax. So who can benefit from art therapy? Absolutely anybody. I really do mean this. Like, you do not need to know anything about paint or crayons, or the difference between chalk pastels and oil pastels. You don't need to know anything. The main thing is that you have that comfortable feeling in you when you're doing it, and that you're not trying to be perfect. It's not about this perfect picture at the end. It's more about the process of the doing of it, and really tuning into that moment of doing. I suppose what the main thing is, just trying to facilitate this space, a reflective space, but also a calm space. So, to really self-regulate, to be mindful as well with the materials in that moment, can be really settling. And then, of course, there's other times when the feeling that you need to express might be anger, and you might need to get quite aggressive with the materials, and that's another way as well. It's like it can do so much for you in that way because of the sensory component of the materials and them being so tactile. Another question that has been asked quite a lot is, do the clients get to keep the artwork they make in art therapy sessions? And there are many therapists that, I suppose, don't understand just how much we end up holding. Because psychotherapists, they use talk. It's talk therapy. Counselors use talk. Dance movement therapies, they use their body. Drama, sometimes they'll use art too. And music therapists, well, they've got their instruments to kind of carry around. But art therapists especially, there is a lot to carry with you, and then when the art is made, we do keep it. So the idea is that we would have the materials all laid out for you to use, and each week it would be consistent, that that you'll always have clay, that you'll always have paint. It's quite important to have consistency, but if you show up with just paint and nothing else, and that's all you're going to offer, that's okay too. It's not a problem, really. You don't need this grand list of materials, but having a variety is good, because there is a variety of people that have different needs, so it's important to cater for them, but it's not massively essential. Art, it can be very simple. It can be just a pencil and a sheet of paper for many people, and that's enough. But yeah, the idea that we keep the art is something that a lot of people ask, and the reason for that is just that continued holding space. So when we say our last goodbye, then you can take the art with you, and that is your choice. I have had clients that find it easier for me to just hold it for them indefinitely. And we do hold them for a minimum of 3 years. So there is that opportunity again, if you change your mind, that you can come back and you can take it away with you. But it's ultimately up to the client then to decide, am I going to keep this piece of art? Or do I want to just take a picture and that's enough for me? Or how about we bin it? How about we destroy it in some way, even burn it? That's something that definitely, for different situations, if people have gone through a trauma, that might be very important for them. It might be part of the process, that letting go. So it is individual in that way. But definitely you wouldn't have a therapy session where you can just take the artwork home with you. That is something, again, that boundary setting that we always talk about, that container, which is the room, the art therapist, the materials, it's all part of it. A typical art therapy session would kind of look like, a room. Sometimes art therapy can be done outside. Eco art therapy is something that I'm very interested in, and that idea of using nature as your art therapy space, your art therapy space. I'm quite interested in that. But for now, my art therapy room is inside, and I would have the art materials all laid out, and I at the moment have the luxurious sand trays as well in my collection. So I'd have a wet sand tray and a dry sand tray, and a box of figures, clay, paint, dry materials for collage, and pencils, crayons, markers, anything really, ink, even Play-Doh, some sensory things like shaving foam or corn flour, and I have one of those big tough trays as well, which is great fun for the younger ones, especially. But yeah, mess making is very important, so I would have a lot of things to incorporate that into the session. I guess the main thing to know is that I bookend sessions, so I would always start and finish the same each week, so you know what to expect in that way. And in the middle of the session then is the kind of the part where it is different in every way each time you're going to be there. No two sessions are going to be the same in that way. And, for the first while, there might need to be some directions given for comfort, for ease. It's not easy having, nearly an hour, 15 minutes is how long I would give for a session for an individual. And I suppose it's just not easy sometimes for people to settle into a space with art materials. So you might need to be direct. You might need to do the art with them. And that's really up to you to decide what style and what approach you are as an art therapist. But for me, I'd be very flexible and very individual in that way. My approach can really differ. But yeah, I suppose just having people being comfortable in the room is quite important. So sometimes it might just end up being a conversation for the first session, or sometimes it might just be an introduction to the art and the art making, and to really model that for them as well. That can be important. So a typical session, well, there's not much more to say except that I'll be the same and the art materials will be the same, and you may be different every single day. And that's permitted and that's allowed, and I suppose that's part of it too. So how is art therapy different from other forms of therapy? A lot of people ask me this, I suppose, because they're quite used to the idea of counselling, and it is similar. It's just that we add in art, and the use of art can really help when words are just not there. So we use the art media as a way to communicate, and sometimes it can go really quite deep quite quickly for people, and it can be quite shocking, and it can be really insightful. So I hope that answered that question. Another one which I think most people would be wondering, and when I introduce myself to people and they say, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a therapist, I might say, or sometimes I might say an art therapist, depending. But if I say art therapist, I'm most of the time just going to get people being like, huh, and they're really interested in me interpreting the art, or what does it mean? So that kind of idea. So yeah, like I don't personally put meaning onto anything, because for me, even colour is so subjective. If I think of yellow, it might be a particular image that comes to mind. Yellow might mean my wedding dress. Yellow might mean the sun for another person. It's very, very subjective and individual. So we can't interpret. Red could be passion for someone else it could be anger. It's so subjective. So if we think about that alone, I couldn't ever interpret another person's artwork. And then if you put metaphors, language, everything on top of that, it's just impossible. You just can't. But the maker is the one who can put meaning onto the art that they have made. So the image maker is the one that makes sense of the art. And that's really important, because it's quite empowering for the person that makes the art to tell me, what is in that. So, I might say, would you like to tell me about your picture? And they get that opportunity to tell me. And I might, get a look from them, and they might be so confused. What do you want me to say? I don't really know. Or just describe your picture to me. And even just that description of their picture is something so different to what I just see with my eyes. So, putting words onto things is quite important for people. It obviously is age dependent, but because you might get a 4 or 5 year old in the room, and they may not be able to describe their picture too much, because it's how they did it, so as an art therapist, I'm trying to look at the body and how it moves, and not forgetting that that's a form of communication in the room too. So there's a lot going on. The image is not only the image on the piece of paper or the art image, it's the image of the person in the room with me and the relationship. That's all incorporated in it as well. So there has been on occasion where I might give my input, or it might be, oh, that reminds me of another piece that you did before, and we talk about that as a theme, and maybe question that as what would that be in your process. There's a lot that can happen, and it can be very, very fruitful in that way to look at it with a client that you've been seeing for a long time. So yeah, it's individual. Should only people struggling with big issues seek art therapy? For me, I honestly think if you can go talk to somebody or see someone who's a qualified professional creative arts therapist, then go, for your own self-development, for your own well-being, for your own self-care. Why not go and have a space to reflect and to grow, to give yourself that time to look at yourself and what are your coping mechanisms, and what areas are you not coping in, and to see if there's any patterns in your behavior, and to see are they healthy behaviors and what's not healthy, and to look at it from that perspective. It can be done in an art therapy room, absolutely. We all have experiences in our lives that have not been easy. We all have personal struggles, so having a space for yourself to just give some moments to reflect on, to process with a neutral person, that's really important, I see. So if you have that opportunity and you can reach out and grab it, then do. That would be my opinion. This seems like a good opportunity actually to just read a quote. If we are to strive as human beings to gain more wisdom, more kindness, and more compassion, we must have the intention to grow as a lotus and open each petal one by one. And this is from A Lotus Grows in the Mud by Goldie Hawn. But yeah, just that idea that, step by step, one by one, we can look at things. I see that as very important. So I'm getting quite near to the end of this podcast episode, and I just wanted to just give a shout out and a big hello to all the people that are working as creative arts therapists in Ireland at the moment. We are on the front line and working away, and it's not easy. So well done, everybody. For the last 12 months, you're doing outstanding work, and don't forget about yourself. It's very important that when we do this work that we take some time out, and for ourselves and for our clients, it's important that we take care of ourselves. So thank you so much for tuning in, and just some insight for you here of who and where people are listening. So nearly 800 of you are listening in Ireland at the moment, and 300 of you are listening in the United States. So thank you very much. I have just under 100 people listening in the UK, and 30 in Canada, and 10 in Australia. Numbers are so funny to look at. But, people in Mexico, Colombia, Portugal, Israel, Vietnam, Slovenia, Poland, Nepal, South Africa. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Hong Kong, Lithuania, Israel, France, Finland, Switzerland, Panama. Just that's amazing. So thank you all so much for giving this a listen. For everyone who's come across the podcast and maybe recommended it to a friend, I really appreciate that. Because I suppose the idea is that we're just trying to normalize therapy, to really just strip away any bit of stigma that's attached to going to see a therapist, because we need to mind ourselves. It's not easy out there at the moment, and we just need to give ourselves permission to look at ourselves and to maintain a certain amount of well-being. So see this as a way to just keep your mental hygiene up. You go see a hygienist and a dentist, so this is the exact way to maintain your mental health. My good friend Celia said that to me before, and I just think it's a beautiful way of saying it. Mental hygiene. Keep up a good mental hygiene. So I will finish this episode and wish you all a happy and peaceful Easter Sunday, and I will be on the podcast again next week. I have loads of beautiful interviews coming up in April for you to look forward to. I've got expressive arts therapists, a psychotherapist who works with teens, and another wonderful art therapist based in the west of Ireland, and I've got some music therapists as well. I'm very excited and just very content right now with the progress of the podcast. And if you want to get in touch, you can drop me an email at contact@enricharttherapy.com. And I have a new website coming out soon as well, which will be enricharttherapy.com and done by the lovely Sinead Lawler. So big shout out to you. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.